Welcome back to the next film. Today I am with Jessica M. Thompson. She is an Emmy-nominated filmmaker from Australia who wrote, directed, produced, and edited her debut feature, The Light of the Moon, just for $86,000, and it premiered at South by Southwest in 2017, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And won the Audience Award. And then she went and made her leap to studio filmmaking with The Invitation at Sony Pictures, scaling up to a $10 million budget. And it opened #1 in the box office and then #2 when it hit Netflix. And then her next film, she's shooting in Spain this summer. It's casting now, called
American Paradise.
American Paradise. I did write that down and I just tried to improv it. And her sophomore writing follow-up, writing directing, is Natural Selection, which, no, you said that one is... Yes.
And that one we're casting now.
That one's the one you're casting now.
Well, we're casting both now, actually.
Oh,
just
fun.
one's already got the financing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Is there a difference? Because I'm actually in that same process right now of casting.
Casting goes quicker when you have financing and when we have dates. So it's we have actual dates we have to shoot in Q4 of this year. So therefore, it's also down to actors' availabilities because sometimes they're just not available.
Yeah.
So it just everything moves a little bit faster, obviously, when you have that. But I have great producers on Natural Selection,
cool.
Eddie Vassman and Julia Lebedev at Sight Unseen. And so they're incredible producers. And so we've got some exciting actors that we're talking to for that one too.
Oh, fun. Yeah, it's like a new venture I'm learning because my first feature, I didn't really we just cast people that we knew. And luckily we had some good connections to really good actors. But yeah, in terms of our casting directors now kind of giving us the insight of this person we need full financing to go after. They won't even read it. But these people are willing to read. It's so interesting how all of that always works.
Yeah. Or whether it goes to the top of a pile versus the middle of a pile or things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really fascinating. And I did kind of learn that while making The Light of the Moon as well, because I was going to make it I did make it super indie, but until my other producer, Michael Cuomo, came on board and read the script because we just met at a party one night in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And he was like, Jess, I think this script is strong enough that you could get actors with some notoriety if you want. He's like, are you purposely casting it, through Actors Access for a reason? And I was like, no, I just honestly didn't know that I could do that.
Yeah.
And he said, let's hire a casting director. And so we got Bess Pfeiffer, who now does Severance. And
my friend works with her.
Oh, yeah.
Erin,
she's amazing. Yeah. Bess is great. So I hired her, and Stephanie Beatrice was #1 on my list. And,
And you got her?
And I got her.
That's awesome.
And then we knew Michael Storr-David, and Conrad Ricamora was a friend of a friend. And I had just seen him in Here Lies Love on Broadway. So it all kind of came together once Stephanie said yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, somebody had to tell me, or maybe I just didn't realize my writing was strong enough to attract a certain caliber of actor. And that does really help you when you are going out to the festivals and things like
100%.
that. And Stephanie was obviously...
Incredible.
The 100% right for the role and delivered above and beyond.
Yeah. I do feel like you have such a good confidence just off the bat though, which I love. I've listened to your other interviews and I just love how listening to when you were at South by Southwest and you're so sure of nope, I'm not going to deal with this person because they're an asshole. And it's just knowing that off the bat, I really admire that.
Thanks.
So
I will say that the confidence came over time. But
okay.
I kind of went into South by Southwest totally green. I didn't even know to get a sales agent earlier on. I didn't start reaching out to agents and managers for myself. I really was kind of naive about the process and how it happens. So when managers and agents started to approach me after the film, just because there was such a it had a powerful impact on audience members, and it would quite often be 30, 45 minutes of mostly women lining up wanting to share their story with me, which I totally was humbled by. But when agents or managers would interrupt that line and cut in front of a woman who had tears down her face to tell me, hi, I'm so-and-so from whatever agency, here's my number. I was just get out of my face.
Yeah,
and so I didn't really... To me, it was just being human, So I hadn't really been ingratiated into the Hollywood. I was living in New York. So I was just are you the biggest asshole in the world? Do you not see this human being and crying in front of me? And the Me Too movement hadn't happened yet. It was just about to. When the film came out, it kind of got branded as a Me Too film. I mean, which was totally fine, but that was not, we didn't make it with that in mind.
Yeah. Well, what's funny too is like I didn't realize this until like yesterday was that so the guest that I just had on last week is Leah McKendrick. She was also at the 2017 South by Southwest. A lot of good films came out.
The 2017 year. So Erin Lee Carr, who's did Mummy, Dead and Dearest, a documentary, and now she's going into scripting, and she just did Murdoch, the series for Hulu.
So good.
Laura Taruso, All About My Father. Lauren Wokestein, like
all the women
it was
too.
2017.
Let's go.
It was an incredible year.
Yeah,
and we've all remained really good friends, and I just love seeing them all excel.
Yeah, I love that so much. That's so cool. But yeah, also that's like your debut feature, and you not only get to premiere at South by, but you win. Like, how incredible is that? And also like on that budget too. It's like a Cinderella story.
I mean, I was beside myself. It was one of the rare moments that I woke my mum up in Australia at like, God knows, some awful hour at like 3 a.m. in the morning, and she probably thought I was dying or something. And I was like, I won South by. Anyway, it was amazing. But yeah, at first I really put all my eggs into that basket, I will say, in maybe an unhealthy way, when you're waiting for these submissions, you know, and now I know that a lot of these are gamed, you know, there's people know that their film's premiering at Cannes before they've even made it because they're, I don't want to say anything, but because of who they are and their caliber and their agents and things like that. Yeah. So at the time I was so naive. That's what I'm saying, is I didn't know, you know, I just like submitted on the website. Like I didn't even know that these things.
That there's so much happening behind the scenes.
And that there's just such a big difference between in competition and out of competition. Like this is all things that I learned 9 years ago as I was kind of going through it. But I really did put all my eggs in South by, and I was at the time, my brother was getting married in Australia, so I was back home, and South by agreed to tell us before Christmas because Tribeca, I think, had already said yes to us or had alluded that they were going to say yes. So there was like this pressure. And
what a great position to be in.
I know, it was lovely. And I just, it was December 20th. I remember I was with my mum. We had gone traveling in Tasmania, which is this island of Australia. And I started crying because I was like, it's December 20th. We didn't get in, you know, it's done. And I literally said to her, just so in case anybody thinks that it was just smooth sailing, I was like, is it too late for me to become a doctor? I was like so beside myself. And then within, I think, an hour, my producer Carlo had called, and I was like, okay, this is either good or bad news. And he had a big smile when I answered, so I knew it was good news. And and it was a beautiful moment. And then winning, I just didn't think for like such a, you know, there is lightness in the film, there is dark humor, which I have in all of my films, because I don't think anyone deals with grief or tragedy, you know, without some humor.
Yeah, definitely not.
But for such a heavy relationship drama about assault, essentially, and recovering from assault and regaining your independence and confidence and intimacy back, I just really didn't expect the audiences to pick that one, you know, because
which I
South by
speaks to the honesty of it too, though.
Yeah, thank you. But so it was just bizarre. Like I thought if we had a chance at anything, it'd be the Grand Jury Award, because there's only really 2 awards at South by. And so then when we won the Audience Award, and they were like, you need to get over to the theatre now because they give you like an encore screening. And so then when I walked in, and the encore screenings are very different to your other 3 screenings. The other 3 screenings maybe won't be all full. Some of them will be, depending on the hour. One of ours was at Sunday at 10 a.m. It's a hard hour to get people to come see a rape drama. So, you know, but then in the encore screening, I walked in and everyone gave me like a standing ovation. And I was just like, what is happening?
That's so cool.
So it was just wonderful. And the audience was just so receptive and beautiful. And the audiences at South by are some of the best in the world.
Yeah,
I'm there for the indie. There are people who go and buy like tickets in advance, and they buy the badges in advance, and they go and they do it every year, and they just love it. Yeah. And I'm just like, it's so cool that there's this real indie festival. You know?
No, I always hear such good things, and I almost went this year, but then I ended up booking guests from out of town, so I stayed back. But next year,
it's fun. Yeah, I went this year as a mentor, and it's always lovely to go back and you know, revisit the festival.
Yeah. How long did it take you to get to that point where, you know, you're premiering at South by? Like, were you putting years into that film, or was it just kind of like, I'm ready to make my feature? Because you were an editor first, right?
Yeah. So I paid my dues, definitely. Like, I mean, I was 12 when I decided to become a filmmaker, which is ridiculous because no one in my family, I mean, I'm first generation Australian. My mum's from Malta, this small country. Single mum, 4 kids. I'm the youngest. Man. And she was just like, I don't know what that is. I don't know how to help you with this. Sounds like a very hard career. And, no one else, every single woman in my family is a teacher, literally every single
wow.
one, cousins, everyone. So it was just a bit of a strange thing for me to say that I wanted to do. And I never wavered. And then when I moved to New York, because Australia is still is a bit of a small pool in terms of trying to get your films made, though we have some incredible, filmmakers right now. Viticus, which I saw at South by, was just phenomenal. I can't wait for that film to come out in June. And, we have some really incredible Natalie Erica James, Saccharin, her film's coming out in May, I think. Anyway, we do have some incredible filmmakers, but it's only now, like 15 years ago when I was looking to kind of come up into the industry, there were so few films being made in Australia by Australians. A lot of American films and productions were being made in Australia. But I was like, I don't want to be, I think you should pay your dues and I was a production manager, I was a runner, all of those things on set, but that was not my end game. I want to be the director, and they were always bringing over the American directors. So I was like, fine, I'll move to the States.
Yeah.
So and then I started editing I was already editing in Australia, but as an assistant editor, and then I kind of became more of a full editor in New York. And I edited 3 documentaries for HBO.
Oh, nice.
And that was, by incredible filmmakers, Cheryl Frogenic, Liz Garbus, who taught me a lot about the craft. And then I felt, but I was making short films. I was always writing and directing. I was always my best friend who I met at film school, Carlo Vallejo, he had moved to New York at that time. We were making short films together.
Oh, cool.
And I said, I'm ready for my feature. Like, I feel like I've done I've been in this industry now for so long, I'm ready to make it. So I have a joke that he said, all right, you've got 6 rooms and 2 people. Now go write something. Because a lot of my ideas are bigger than what The Light of the Moon is, but I realized there was no way. I don't know anyone with that kind of money, so I knew we'd have to find the money by the skin of our teeth and make this call in all of our favors. So I kind of wrote a film that was a bit more contained.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will say to people out there who are watching this or wanting to make their first film, the thing you have is the script. Like, you have an idea, you have a script, and whatever it is about it that is going to attract people, something about it has to be unique. And I don't mean necessarily the concept. I don't mean the sci-fi, the tech, whatever it needs, though that can be part of it. I think with The Light of the Moon, it was the rawness, like what you were saying. These conversations.
And never having seen that on screen. And
Yeah. And I didn't know that at the time, but that's what I realized now, looking back at it. I was like, it was a conversation that people hadn't seen on screen. Yeah. It was a situation. And it spoke to people. Yeah. It grabbed people's attention in that way because it felt so honest and real. And so that's what I mean by don't just copy these other films. Like, try to have something that you're trying to say.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be super profound, but it's got to be something that is unique to this film. And so then I kept working on the script because that's what I had. So I would do workshops with my friends who were actors. I also I am an actor as well. I trained as an actor when I was 21 with Nicole Kidman's company and in Australia. And I kind of stopped doing that, but you still use a lot of those tools that I gained from that.
I think that's important.
When I'm with my actors. And I tell people when I go to film schools like USC and do talks there, I'm like, okay, you want to be a director, put your hand up if you've taken an acting class. And most of them put their hands down, And it's crazy to me. I'm like, how are you going to talk to your actors? You should learn all the techniques. Doesn't mean you have to master them, but you should know them so that when you're like, okay, they're doing Meisner, okay, they're doing, Stella Adler, whoever it is.
And just like that communication and language from the character point of view, I think, too, is like a skill that you develop as an actor.
Yeah, so I quickly jump. The actor doesn't have to tell me what kind of, because a lot of actors, I think now, just pick from whoever, they don't just do Strasbourg. They kind of like put in their own flair. But I can see what gels with them. So I quickly go through my little thing in my head. I'm like, okay, they've probably trained and done this, and things like that. And it just helps me as a director speak to them and speak their language.
Definitely.
And help get them do their job and get the best out of them. Which is what we're all here to do. Yeah. So what I did is I actually did a drop-in class at the Barrow Group in New York as an acting class.
That's where I started.
Yeah, I love them there.
And when I moved to New York.
Yeah, and my idea was to poach actors to play the smaller roles in my film.
Nice.
And that worked out well because I ended up finding 3 actors there that did like some of the smaller roles in the film and have become friends for life. And so I kind of was like, okay, then I worked with them to like workshop this script before I took it out to the casting director and people. I was just like, this is all I've got. I've got to make these and I improvise a lot. That's kind of how I get the naturalistic dialogue. Nice. I record it on my phone as I'm just pretending to be, it sounds probably a little strange because I'm just going back and forth between two characters. Anyone listening in, but then sometimes that'll help me get to like a line or I was like, oh, that scene after Bonnie and Matt have sex for the first time after the assault, that the dialogue that they have there's a line in that I was like, oh, that came to me in an improv with myself, and I was like, that's it, that's what the scene's about.
Yeah, no, I do that. I have to say stuff out loud and like find the rhythm or like figure.
And I think it helps with naturalism. And so that's, to me, I just really perfected that script. I can't really remember exactly how long it took, but I want to say it was about a year that I worked on the script while editing and while doing other things, and then we decided to start raising the money.
Nice.
Which was,
Do you think that you had like a specific like it's ready to go, or you were like, no, it's time to like go out and we can keep editing as we go, or like was there just like a clear moment to you that was like green light? I know this is like a bit of time ago, but
I'm trying to think.
I just think sometimes
I kept just listening.
Yeah,
I think I kept like, and if Stephanie and Michael when we were rehearsing, I would get them to improv around the scenes, or I got them to improv that we kind of rehearsed in the apartment that their characters live in, so it felt like a home to them. Got them to improvise their first date and their first fight and things like that to really kind of build their relationship up. And so sometimes I took lines from that and I took... So I feel the script is a amorphous thing, and it's always kind of adapting to the new people that you're adding in. I've always valued... now, if something doesn't make sense or doesn't speak to me, then I won't take that note. But I've always valued my collaborators and their opinions.
Yeah. And then when did you bring your casting director on with that?
Yes. Yeah. So it was, like I said, we were down the pipeline of casting and doing auditions from Actors Access and Backstage and all those kind of things. And I just at a party, I happened to meet our third producer, Michael Cuomo, and he is cousins of that Cuomo as well, unfortunately. But he's a wonderful human, and he read it, and he was the one that he knew best.
Oh, okay.
And so and then that came on, and then it all came together really quick because we knew we had to shoot in the summer.
Okay.
Because
it's nice
Stephanie
to have that deadline.
was off from Brooklyn Nine-Nine in the summer. So we knew that we had just a short, and it was a 16-day shoot, so it was, really tight. So then we kind of were ready to rock.
Yeah. And then in New York too, like how was that shooting indie?
I loved it. And also because I'd been living in Brooklyn by then for 7 years or whatever it was, 8 years. And so all of the every single location are like coffee shops that I write out of. And,
oh, nice.
And so in the end, we didn't pay one location fee. I say you can pull in your favors once as a filmmaker. And I pulled them all in on that film.
No, but that's cool that you did that in New York. Because like it's easy. Like I'm from Ohio and I'm able to do that there. But like in New York, that's cool.
Yeah, and you can't do that unless you like literally buy coffee from these people like 3 times a week, and they're like, yeah, anything for you, Jess,
Oh, I love that.
So then that all...
it's like community,
Yeah, it all worked out in that regard. Like, I don't think I could have done that until I had, like I said, paid your dues and gone around and been part. And even with our camera package, VER donated a $50,000 package to us because I had made commercials with them as a director, and my cinematographer had as well.
Oh, cool. So you were already directing some things before then?
Yeah, commercials, like small branded content type stuff and short films. And so, so that's like, so then I called in all those favors. Nice. I've been editing at multiple different editing houses over there. So I asked them to donate the edit suite and to donate. So I say it's an $86,000 film. It is. And that's the cash flow that we had. But probably when I haven't done this little exercise, but if I calculate all the free, incredible volunteer efforts, and, things like that, that we got, it's probably more like a $500,000 film.
That's how any indie film would be, though, too. If you're including like what you get for free or in kind or, friends and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So,
and New York has this incredible... I don't know if they still have it, called Made in New York. It's part of their program there where they train PAs and they have to learn on set. They have to do a certain amount of hours for free on a set.
Oh, interesting.
And those PAs were incredible. And actually one of our PAs just this Sundance had her first film as a producer there.
Oh,
so that gave me... like an incredible joy to see this PA from 8 years ago.
That's so awesome.
To do that. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Okay, and so I know that from The Light of the Moon to The Invitation is such a big jump in budget. But you did do a Showtime show in Australia, which you mostly directed as well.
Yeah, I directed 6, so I was the lead director on that. So I directed 6 out of the 10 episodes.
Okay.
Written by the incredible Samantha Strauss, who did Apple Cider Vinegar recently on Netflix, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
We shot that in Australia with Frances O'Connor and Harriet Walter and Morgan Davies. And that was phenomenal. It was one of those rare things where, you know, you come out of South by, you now have agents, you now have managers, they made me move to LA, like all of these things kind of are happening, and you're like, what is your next project going to be? And I kept getting sent things, and it's just so trash. Like 99% of the stuff you get sent is trash, and you know, pilots or scripts, and all I do is like write. I say when I'm writing a script, you're never going to get your first opinion back, and as a director, that's really important because once you've read a script 30 times and you start to direct it, then you're like, I don't remember what my gut instinct was. So it takes me quite a while to read a 60-minute or 30-minute, 90-minute script because I'm constantly writing my feedback, my thoughts. And with Sam's pilot for the end, I read it so quickly just because it was just so good. And it was just something a dark comedy about euthanasia. I mean, I've never seen that before.
Quickly, where do you think your like standards and just like your gut instincts for the writing, came from? Was that something you learned in film school? You just feel like you were born with it?
I think just consuming films constantly. I prolifically watch films and TV shows and just consume so much. So I think it's just getting to know your taste over time and why does that speak to you? And it doesn't necessarily, it's not right or wrong, but you've got this like deep gut instinct about opinion and things like that. And as a director, that's your point of view and that's what everyone's paying you for.
Yeah.
You can't make a film by numbers. It's like I always say, you can't have too many chefs in the kitchen makes a bad film. The reason that studios, producers are paying you is to have an opinion and have a point of view and try to not let it get muddied over time when everybody's giving you notes. And things like that. You've got to stay true to yourself. So I think it's just something that comes over time.
Cool. So then going from The Light of the Moon to The Invitation, and what's the biggest, going from 86,000 to 10 million, like, what does prep look like? What is that?
So I will
transition?
say, so I did. So after the Light of the Moon, I then did my apprenticeship shadowing on The Handmaid's Tale.
Oh yeah,
for 6 weeks. So I learned a lot on that.
Oh, for 6 weeks, cool.
Yeah, for 2 episodes on season 2, and so that's obviously a giant budget. Yeah. So that really helped me kind of really see how to scale things up.
Nice.
But also kind of understand that it's not dissimilar. Like I was like, okay, we did all of this.
So it's kind of demystifying it for you.
Demystified it a bit. I was like,
cool.
I can handle this. Like,
Hell yeah.
I was like, you've just got to scale all your ideas up.
Okay.
And there's obviously in the art department now, there's instead of one person, there's 50 people or 100 people or whatever it is. But all of that is scalable. I really hate this kind of stereotype that the industry has of independent filmmakers that we're take our time or we're kind of gluttons for time. We don't know how to shoot to time and things like that. Because I think indie filmmakers are so scrappy and we're so organized, and we have to be because we've got to shoot something in 15, 16 days. We don't have the liberty to take our time. Yeah. That's a myth about independent filmmakers. We're incredibly scrappy, and so I just knew I could do all of these things and that I would do it on time, on budget and all these things because I have to, because I don't have this thing in my head that, I've got excess amount of money. Right. And you always want more. Like even with The Invitation, having $10 million and building most of my sets and things like that, which we shot in Hungary and, we managed to... Which
I want to dig into,
get so much bang for our buck there because everyone's an artist. Like every person on the street in Hungary is an artist. And so everything just looks so beautiful when they craft these incredible sets and these incredible props and things like that. So, but you always want more. There's always more you need. So then you've got to really use your producerial part of your brain. Like, okay, well, if I take 30 extras from that day, I can add it to this day. And, and you just kind of maneuver it around. Yeah. And so I think that helps as a director that you've had that producerial aspect to you, that then how to make something work with less so that you can add it.
Are you having to think about that as well? Because I know you produced The Light of the Moon, but now going into The Invitation and the Showtime show, like... But you're solely directing. But are you still having those conversations with producers or kind of having to think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of your job as a director, is definitely to kind of look over that. Unfortunately, with studio films, or I don't know if it's with every studio, but with Sony, they make you sign off on a budget that you're never allowed to look at. So they're like, agree to sign and say you can make this film for 10 million. I was like, can I see the budget? And they're like, no. I'm like,
Okay.
And they make you do this like a week before you start shooting.
Yeah.
So I think I wrote a clause like, I want it to be noted that I have not seen this budget, but I know that I can do it for this amount.
Yeah. And you're not able to see like which departments are getting
no line
that?
item, no nothing. I don't know if that's a studio-wide thing or whether it's just a
Is
Sony
someone
thing.
then telling you?
Yeah, the line producer. And
Okay,
the
is
UPM.
like, you have this much.
Well, they won't tell you the exact number, but they'll be like, so you've just got to put it in your head, like, okay, I know that we have extras on this day. You know, maybe I could shoot that in the rain and make less extras. You know, add some rain, but like make it look wet or damp or cold or something like that, and that way we can excuse for why the street's not that busy. You know,
I feel like that's almost harder to get creative with your resources when you don't know what your resources are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely it's a bit of a strange
challenge.
conundrum. It was an absolute challenge.
Yeah,
but or even on the end, you know, with things like that, with a TV series, because you're shooting over 10 episodes, you can sometimes move things like. I did episode 1 and 10, which are big episodes because of the pilot and the finale. So sometimes you typically have more budget you take from the middle.
Got it.
And put to the end. So you've got your budget per episode, but then it's also for the whole season.
Okay.
So you're able to like, well, we're just going to have to pull from somewhere else. And you figure out how to do that. And you work with your writer as well. Like with Sam, you know, is there any way we can minimize these? Can we get this story told? Can we get this very important plot point set in a different location that is not going to cost us like an arm and a leg?
Yeah.
And you work together to figure that out. So it's a very big logistical thing.
Yeah. Which again, that's kind of what you're doing on an indie film. It's like, okay, I wrote this for this, but we don't have access to that because we can get this other thing for free. How can I make it this now?
Exactly.
But you're still doing that on a Showtime show.
Yeah, you've got to do it on every level, on every budget level. So it's good to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But it's also don't let it hinder your creativity, because I also think that there is, with constraint comes great creativity.
Yeah.
Like I kind of miss, don't get me wrong, I love Christopher Nolan, I love all of his films, but I kind of miss Memento Christopher Nolan. Like I was like, can we give him a box and like let him play in this sandbox?
Yeah.
So sometimes with my cinematographer Autumn Aiken, who I've had from The Light of the Moon to The Invitation, and now we're making this next film together.
Oh, nice.
We often I say to her, like, how would we shoot this scene if we just had one take and we just had one camera angle? Like, what is the most important aspect? What is the most important point of view that we're trying to get across, or the story that we're trying to tell in this one scene? And I think that's a good practice to do, even if you have 10, 20, $30 million, because then you're like, it really grounds you into, this is what's the most important part of this scene. This is the story we need to tell. This is what emotion we need to get and capture for the audience.
Yeah.
And so it's good to start with that exercise.
Definitely.
Start small and then build out.
Yeah, I love that. And so that was kind of your approach when I'm getting into these bigger budgets, is kind of keeping it grounded in each scene.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I do not sacrifice my rehearsal time. That's something that I've definitely taken from The Light of the Moon to the end to The Invitation. Is I really have sacred rehearsal time, and it's not like we're going over the scenes every day. It's a lot of it is building trust with my actors.
Yeah.
We have such a short time to get to know each other and trust each other and get to know each other, and as artists, as people, as humans. And so then I feel like, I always say, every hour in rehearsal saves me a day on set.
I love that.
So
and that's like a good thing to tell investors too.
Yes,
like,
my
I know
actors
that
are coming in ready. My actors, and they trust me. And so then when we're on set, of course, there's still like some things that have to go wrong. We need to discuss some things about that. But we've largely done a lot of that in rehersal.
How long are you usually trying to get for rehearsal, or like
usually
advocate for?
a week.
A week? Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not much to ask for.
Yeah, and so it's not sometimes it'll be a week spread out over 2 weeks.
Okay.
You know, you might get your actors flown in because they have to do costume and hair and all of that stuff. So it'll be in between there. They're getting their costumes fitted. They're getting all of this. So it's not like I'm going to make them do 9 hours a day, but we'll do two 2-hour sessions. And we'll, you know, and then I do them individually. I put them together depending on who's with who.
Yeah.
And I think it just, and we do, a lot of the time we're not actually even looking at the script. We're kind of improving around the script. We're talking about what happened just before the scene, this film started in her life or his life.
I love that.
And so it's like we're building backstory.
Yeah.
And it just really creates this honesty and realness and trust, so that when we're on set just moves faster.
Smooth, yeah.
But you'd be surprised about how many producers don't want to give you rehearsal. It's insane.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really feels like taboo, especially in
TV.
Oh, really?
Especially in TV.
Did you have to advocate for that in Showtime?
Pretty hard.
Oh, man.
At that time, Sky was the investor, and Showtime bought it after we'd made it.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, it's a Showtime original as well. But so Sky, I had to really I know it costs a little bit extra to get these actors out a little bit earlier, but trust me.
But it'll save
you so much time and save you so much money.
Which is like always interesting when you have to have a conversation about that, because it's like, okay, yes, I get on paper it looks like it's this much, but like it's actually saving us this many, like it's saving us an extra day or two, or it's saving us like this setup, or this like now we're not really having to rehearse before the scene, or we just go in knowing it.
Yeah. And now that I have a reputation for delivering on, which is a big thing, but, unfortunately, making your days is still like very much a thing. And it's a big thing on studio films and on network television. And now that I have a reputation for doing that and running a good set, I feel like now nobody pushes back when I ask for rehearsal. But you've got to develop that reputation and really fight for yourself and advocate for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Yeah, I am shooting my next film on film, but I feel like that's kind of a conversation too of like, I get on paper it looks a little more, but it's actually because we have to plan so much extra and there's only so much to shoot, like it actually makes set go a lot smoother.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people find.
My next film is on 35 millimeter as well.
No way. Which one?
American Paradise, which we're shooting in Spain.
Oh yeah. Was that like always, or was that?
Yeah, always. It's part of the financing plan.
Okay, cool. And was that
part
like
of the financing deal?
Was that a creative choice from like
I mean,
the script?
I love 35. I mean, I'd love to shoot everything on 35, but it is just so rare that you're afforded the opportunity. But because Kodak Spain is trying to like bolster their industry there and things like that. So it was kind of offered to us and it was like basically offered at cost, so it was like absolutely.
Oh, that's so cool.
So yeah, me and Automo, it's going to be great. It's our first time shooting on film together.
Yeah.
And so we both have to, I was like, we have to brush up on our film because, it's just been a while.
Fun
nowadays with film cameras and the difference between digital and film is so, you could tell 10 years ago and now you really can't because of the sensors and the lenses and the things that you're using. So much of it is the same now, but it does take a little longer. The cameras are heavier, things like that. So, most of this is going to be handheld. So that is a consideration. So it's just figuring all that out.
And when are you, because it sounds like you've already kind of made some creative choices. Is that all the script informing that for you in terms of like the handheld? The rawness of the script. This one is set in a psych ward, and it's a bit of a dark comedy, although I'd call it more of a dramedy, a satire thriller. And it's kind of has a lot to say about the American healthcare industry and mental health care here. So a lot of the script and the way the tone is based on this book by Mark Bellingham. A lot of the tone just naturally comes through on the page, and just handheld just feels very cool. It just feels like it lends itself to that. Yeah.
That being said, there is also another. It's set, half in another place, and that we're planning to do on sticks, dollies, cranes, things like that.
Yeah.
So to create that contrast between kind of the more chaotic world and the slightly calmer world.
I just love hearing about creative choices and thinking of like this.
So of course, what you see is not how it appears. So you're also trying to. It's very manipulative what we do. Trying to get the audience to feel something or think something
without like actually knowing that we're getting
where we're going. Just trust me. Come along this journey with me.
Yeah. So and then the Invitation, it shot in Hungary. Yeah. And then was that a choice that was like made from the beginning, or was that just the best country in terms of like what you wanted creatively, or how did that decision get made?
None of these things. Well, I love Hungary. It's an incredible country. I'd heard great things about filming there. I visited there before. But, unfortunately, it is just a lot cheaper for studios to make films overseas. And Europe has a lot of tax. I'm also European through my mother. So they get a 40% tax break on me being the director, things like that. Yeah. So there's that. Australia has a similar situation, 40% there as well, 45. So there's those kinds of things that really help. But also just the dollar goes further there. So your $10 million is more like a $20 million film. I'm not joking. It looked beautiful. Yeah. We wouldn't have been able to build any sets if we shot this in the States, it is disappointing because I do really want to like bolster the industry here. But I love working in Europe. And this is part of the joy of being a filmmaker is getting to travel around the world and make films everywhere. And the crews, they were fantastic. Honestly, I have to say, out of all the places that I've filmed, this is terrible because I had a bit of a stereotype of maybe Eastern European men. And I'm so glad that changed through the making of this film because the crews were phenomenal.
I love that.
Unfortunately, it was hard to find women in the camera department. Obviously, my HOD, my cinematographer, was a woman. But we told them, you need to really start to get young women into this field. But in all the other art department, everything, I try to have an equal set as much as possible. But I usually, as a young female director, I'm sure this wouldn't shock you, that sometimes there is a bit of pushback from men on the crew when you ask for certain things, or they kind of look you in the eye sometimes, so strangely, even though I'm their boss. And I don't even like film hierarchies. Like, I like to think I'm a pretty fair director, and I respect everyone from the PA to the gaffer. So I expect that respect in return. Yeah. And so it is disappointing sometimes when that isn't given to you for something that is out of your control. But in Hungary, I will say the crews were like wonderful. I've never been more respected and more appreciated. And I was just like, wow. This is such a delight. And especially, I will say, shooting in Dracula's homeland was pretty amazing when you're making a vampire film.
Yeah.
So we actually went to where Vlad the Impaler, which a lot of people think Dracula is based on, like the true.
I don't know much about the lore.
Yeah,
so
he's like he was a leader of, I can't remember which. I don't know if it was Hungary, but I think it was Romania, and then he got imprisoned in Hungary. Anyway, pretty bad guy. And his name was Vlad the Impaler, and we went to the prison where he was held for like a long time, and it's this underground cavern, and it was so bizarre. So it was really great for inspiration.
Yeah.
It's such a gothic city, Hungary, and so you just turn around and there's just inspiration left, right, everywhere.
Yeah, I love that.
So in the end, I fell in love with the country. And I would happily shoot anything there after having such a stellar experience.
How long did you spend in Hungary for pre-production, or did you like kind of, start here and then finish it over there? You
always end up starting a little bit here, like pre, because you cast here and you interview and hire your HODs here and things like that. But we were probably, all in all, I think it was 5.5 months total in Hungary.
Oh, wow.
It was the tail end of COVID, so we were still having to wear masks on set. And we had, a couple of slowdowns because of, cast or crew getting a little sick and things like that. So it was a little slower than we would normally be. 5.5 months, which is probably about the same time as I was shooting in Spain. I try to get as much pre-production as possible because, once again, it just saves you time on set. So even if they ask for 8 weeks, I ask for 10. If they ask for 10, I ask for 12. Yeah, it's just... And we don't even have to take the whole crew over. Like, just take me and the production designer and the producer and the cinematographer, or like whoever, the locations manager, like just a few skeleton crew to ramp that up so that I can start to really build things and in my mind and get everyone a head start. Yeah. Because the more time you have in pre, the more time you save, the more money you save.
Definitely. Yeah. What do you think is the biggest jump from going from The Light of the Moon to The Invitation, which I know it's not necessarily fair since you've had a lot in between?
Oh, as in like what was the biggest jump in terms of to get used to?
Yeah, or like the biggest like shift you felt like you had to make as a director. Because also, you have a writer on this too.
Yeah.
Light of the Moon, you're obviously kind of wearing all the hats.
Yeah. So, it was like, I know this is going to sound really arrogant, Jess, but I felt like I was just ready for it.
I love it.
I'd been consuming filmmaking and film. Like I said, I've been obsessed since I was 12.
Yeah.
I was
You're like, this is my time.
Later in life with ADHD, I was like, this makes sense. I've just been obsessed with this thing since I was 12.
I have ADHD. I'm also like hyper-focused.
And my mum would always say to me when I was young, oh, you're either obsessed or nothing. And it's true. I either could not give a shit about something or I'm just obsessed with it.
Yep.
And so I really was just consuming how-to filmmaker books, Wes Anderson's books, like all of the, and I would just read about. So I felt like I was so ready because I love
that.
I was prepping for this moment for so long. And then everything I did was kind of a gradual, and I will say jumping from The Light of the Moon to seeing this, observing The Handmaid's Tale
was really helpful.
Was like, great. Okay, I understand how to scale up all of these things. And then I just put all of that knowledge with The End and then The Invitation. I will say the most joy that I had on The Invitation in terms of just getting to play in a bigger sandbox was seeing sets being built. For me. That castle that we built, the interior was the exterior is real and it's the Madame Bathory, who was the woman that used to bathe in virgin's blood, castle, so that was also creepy. But so we shot in their exterior and interior, but we also built that main hall, and it's 2 stories, and it's like beautiful, and it's like, of course, you knock on it, and it's like you can hear it's hollow, but it's
Still,
all
though, yeah.
and it, down to like the scene. The people in Hungary, there's a saying, I think, you throw a penny, you'll hit a cellist, because everyone knows how to play a classical instrument. Everyone knows how to paint. So all your artworks, all your paintings, like everyone is just, all the wallpaper in Evie's bedroom is all hand painted.
Oh my God.
And it's got this weasel chasing.
I mean, it is so beautiful,
bird.
so it makes sense. But like, just so
everything
cool.
was so bespoke. So I just loved the passion and the joy that the crafts people put in, in the art department, everyone making their props and, the babushka dolls that we would make and things like that. It was just such a joy to see all
that's like
of this.
filmmaking, what that's all about.
Yes.
It's like everyone getting to like do their best work and
Yes.
build
And
this
so
thing together.
Exactly. So seeing like this set, and then also seeing the set and having a giant crane, and seeing Autumn, my cinematographer, who, we made this tiny little film together 9 years ago. I was like, that was a bit of a joyous moment.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Beautiful.
This is going to be such a very random, specific question, but you brought up crane. How do you know? Because obviously, Light of the Moon, $86,000. You're not using cranes.
We do not have cranes.
Yeah. So now it's like, how do you know when you need a crane? Like you're just like depending on your camera department. Or?
A producer would say, "Do you ever really need a crane?" I think it's what the story will lend itself to that. Like for this film, this American Paradise, and even for Natural Selection, my one that's set in the Galapagos, I don't see us using a lot of cranes.
It's set there. That's cool.
When it can't shoot there, but
okay.
because it's the national park.
Yeah,
but we'll probably shoot that one maybe in the Canary Islands, off the coast of Morocco, or in Malta, where my mum's from, because it has a similar landscape. So we'll see.
Will be a beautiful shoot, though.
It will be so much fun. And we'll have to go to the Galapagos to get like the interstitial type
of course,
nature and stuff like that, which would be great. What were we talking about? Cranes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just
So
like
to me, it lends it. Like the invitation was this bespoke Gothic wedding, cranes, you need cranes to tell this story, when you want like to expansive, when you want your world to look beautiful and big and grandiose and things like that. But I don't think, it just depends on what the script is trying to say. And I don't just do a crane dance for no reason. That's what I always tell my producers. Like, I'm not adding this because I want to jack the budget up. It's like sometimes you just need, it's also like depends. A small crane as well. There's also small. We did actually, technically, a mini jib it's not a crane, but it's like a handheld kind of crane. And so we did use a couple of those on the Light of the Moon.
Oh, nice.
So it's just like, do you want to get above your characters? Do you want to, what perspective are you trying to tell? Whose head do you want to be in? And, so the script and the story and the acting and the characters, they should all inform you.
Yeah.
But you could technically make, Chris Nolan or someone's going to hate me saying that you can make any film without a crane.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you're doing something like The Odyssey or something, it just feels like a big world. And so you want to show it.
Yeah. Definitely.
To the audience.
Yeah. I love that. In terms of The Handmaid's Tale, like getting to shadow on that, how did you get that opportunity?
Yeah. So that's, I think my manager at the time, she set that up for me. I always say, like, the biggest thing in our industry is the barrier to entry. So, don't get me wrong, sexism, racism, these are all awful, but I really do feel like the classism is the barrier to entry.
Yeah.
I will say is that I had to pay, for my airfares, for my hotel, for my, I didn't get a stipend, any of that. It was all just me.
Yeah.
So even though it was right in the middle of the Me Too movement, and we were trying to say we need more women in the industry, MGM and Hulu did not want to pay up in that way. So, and I had just made The Light of the Moon. That was a bit, because what happens is when you make an indie film, which is wonderful, which I didn't know quite happened until it happened, then you get into London Film Festival, and you get in all these other big film festivals. And so then for like 8 weeks that summer, I was just traveling around the world. It was so beautiful. It was like wonderful. It was like, I didn't know that that's what happens after you premiere at somewhere like South by. It was such a wonderful experience. But of course, I was not earning money. I was like, we sold the film, but it wasn't for much, and we had to pay back all our investors and things like that. So it was a lot. I had to put all of that, the Hulu, the Handmaid's Tale on credit card. And I was like, I'm just hoping this is paying off at some point, you know. And so that's what I really want to call out in this industry.
No, it's so true. Because like even with my feature, which like I really only like, because you know you only have so much budget anyways to like apply to film festivals. And there's so many these days. So it's like I'm considering two things. Like one, what's going to be for the film and you know audience, and also like getting it sold. But which one's can I go to? Because like financially, like there's zero money in the budget of the like film budget to get me there. And it's like, I'm a bartender still. Like, how do I get myself there? And so I only got to go to a few. Luckily, there was like one festival who pampered all of us filmmakers and flew us out and put us up. And we had food in the town. It was incredible. The Sean Island Film Festival. I love you. But other than that, though, it's just like, I don't know if it's talked about how much of our own money and time and everything goes into just like the promotion of our film after we finally did all this work and raise the money to make it and stuff. And then it's like, how do you get to London? How do you get to like this other film festival? And like, obviously you want to experience that too.
These films, you know, festivals paid for me to go.
Oh, nice. Cool.
But they, you know, paid for my flights, paid for my accommodation, things like that. But you're not earning any money. Like, you know, so you're just like, okay. And then, so you just have to hope. And of course you're going to go for it. And you're like, this is the big opportunity I've been waiting for.
Yeah.
And so you put your all into it. But nobody really discusses. I think there's this idea that, we've created these programs to help more women or to help more people of color get into the industry. And I was like, well, what about, like, you're just assuming that these people have money somewhere from mommy or daddy to back them up in this. Yeah. And
especially if it's like, because that was over 6 weeks, you said, right? Yeah, that's a long time to go without working. Like, I know. Even like 1 week sometimes is a lot.
Yeah, and then with the film festival thing, that was like 8 weeks. So it was multiple. I was just like, okay, this is all, you know. And you have to pretend, you have to put on a face and not talk about that.
Well, because of course it's like a great opportunity that people would die for, and like there is that barrier to entry.
You don't mention it to everyone. It's like everything's fine. I'm just like, you know, over here eating
like
oatmeal.
I'm grateful.
Yeah, so it's just interesting because like what pressure we put on people. And I really do feel that, you know, without the class divide, that we have so many incredible filmmakers that just don't have access to these upper echelons and don't have a trust fund and aren't able to self-fund a lot of these things. You know,
or even just like the time, like that's like a big thing too with like writing. I think is like having that open time to like let the script come through and, you know, all of that. And it's like, people don't always have the luxury of having an open schedule because they have to, you know, have a job.
Exactly. So that's the thing is like a lot of these programs, we need to really think about that. Yeah. You know, we really need to think about who are we advertising these to and who are we trying to help break it down, break those barriers to entry and those walls down so that we can have these perspectives and these point of views.
Yeah, I love that.
Because I don't want to just see a diversity of gender, skin color. I also want to see a diversity of finances, a diversity of class, because I think, you know, there's a few filmmakers out there that have been able to do it and break in by the skin of their teeth. But Andrea Arnold is one of my favorite filmmakers. Yes. And what I love about her is that there's this authenticity to these stories that she's telling because she grew up in, housing commission in the projects.
Yeah. American Honey, like no one would have made that like her.
Yeah. It's just this authenticity, this rawness to it. And you don't get that when you're out there rich pretending to be poor. You know, I'm like, oh, okay, you can feel it. I mean, there's a difference when it's like this is a lived experience. I'm not saying that it has to feel like a documentary or anything like that. No, obviously we're creative and we're artists and we imagine.
No, but there is that authenticity to it. Yeah,
and I want more of those stories. Like they say that's what we want. We want this diversity of stories, and I'm like, well, that's how we get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that you're advocating for that too, because that is like a conversation we're not really having. Yeah,
because at some point I decided to stop talking about, like saying, just to be honest about the experience with shadowing and the experience with, because I was like, I think, yes, it was an incredible opportunity. I'm so grateful to have had it. I did learn a lot from it. But gosh, I had to put thousands and thousands of dollars on a credit card at a time when I did not have much money.
And you weren't, at that time too, obviously. I mean, hopefully it's all paid off, you know, but
yes, I think so. But it's like, it is just like the pressure that we put on young people, on young creatives, and then we wonder why people get burned out and we wonder why. And I'm like, no, we're not sitting in an office doing these things. We're different. We have a connection to something metaphysical, something spiritual. And that's what they want. Like those executives want that. They want you to have that perspective that like, you know, I May Destroy You, whatever, these shows or these films that just like speak to your soul.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so don't dampen that. Like,
Yeah.
try to lift it up.
Cater to that.
Cater to that. Yeah. Let us breathe. Let us have a feast sometimes. Like,
yes. Yes. I love that. So, and now what are like the biggest lessons you think you're taking from both, you know, all the films and series that you are going into these next 2 films?
I think the biggest lessons that I take along the way are to stay true to yourself. And to respect others. Like, really, if I never want someone on my set to be saying that, of course, you have conflicts on set. That's natural. That's like, you know, because you have people with lots of opinions and people with like creative vision and you've got to, you know, I don't think conflict is a bad thing, by the way. I'm not, you know, not everyone needs to be holding hands and harmoniously singing in a song circle for the whole shoot. But I always talk to my PAs. I always talk to my runners. I try to get to know on a bigger set that is harder because there's so many more people and you're like, hang on, who's that person? Like, you know, but, you know, for instance, on The Light of the Moon, I took the rubbish out, you know, when I was doing, you know, I made sure that I sat with the assistant editor who was ingesting all of our dailies because I was editing the film and showed her a few techniques and showed her, like, tried to give some knowledge to her about editing so that she could maybe take that on to her next job.
Yeah.
So I always, the PAs in your films are going to be the filmmakers of tomorrow, you know.
Which it did happen. Yeah.
Yes,
on
which
yours,
did happen with Miss Schroeder. And so then I always think that. So I always try to, like, have a respectful set, and I always say that if your runner or your PA is happy and feeling creatively fulfilled, then that means you're doing a good job.
That's a good mantra.
So I don't think it changes much from whether you're making a small budget or a big budget film. Like, you should just treat people with kindness, treat people with respect, and that will come back to you in spades. Yeah. And then you'll have this incredible, harmonious, creative experience.
I love that. Yeah. Okay, so now that you have 2 films on your plate, how are you kind of balancing that? And like, what does prep look like? Because you're not necessarily in pre-production yet for either, right? Like, you're just kind of looking
pre for one.
Okay. Like, what are your everyday things?
And to be honest, I've told you about these 2 things, but I have 8 projects on my plate.
Okay, wow.
This is just how it works now. Unfortunately, it's not how my brain would like it to be.
Okay.
I'm sure most filmmakers feel like they're in the same boat. Unfortunately, you just don't have the liberty and the time these days with the industry contracting and things like that. You've got to kind of be stoking a lot of fires. And so, you know, so I just finished another spec and that one's going out to the town to try to, like, get some producers and set that up. And so you're always, and this sounds wild, but it's just I have a notes app, you know, the thing in my notes app. And I just have a list of it. And every day I tick off one thing of each, and I put them in the order of priority. So obviously American Paradise, because that's the first one, and then Natural Selection is the second one. I put them in order. I just, you know, you have to be organized. This is like the most boring thing. But filmmakers, a lot of that is.
No, it's good to know this.
We're seen as these like creative free hippies. No, we're not. Like, you have to be so meticulously organized. And then you lean on your team once you have managers and agents and things like that and lawyers, and you ask them to help you push things along in different directions. And so that's what I try to do is I just go through each of my projects, and then I make sure every day that they're, and if one, you know, at the moment, like I said, I'm doing this director's pass on this script. So that's kind of consuming a lot of my time. And then and you've just got to figure out how to use your time. But it is like a pie chart where you're trying to feed all these little babies. Because you shouldn't just look for the next film that you're doing, you've got to look for the one after that as well. To have a sustainable career at the moment. It's just stoking a lot of fires.
No, that's good info, because I feel like we don't really hear too much about that either. It's like essentially like 8 different things you're trying to, you know,
and you never know,
like
started. The number 4 or the number 5 suddenly comes out of nowhere. It's like, well, we just raised the fund, or we've got this incredible actor involved or interested, and then suddenly it gets the one that you didn't think was going to go gets higher up the list, and so it's just it's a bit of a fun little puzzle at the moment. And it's great to be working with all these incredible producers, and some of the things I've written, some of the things other people have written, and to keep kind of pushing these things up the ladder.
Hell yeah.
But I can't wait for once, you know, this next film 100% is in pre-production and my brain just gets to be absorbed on one thing. I just love, it's just what, you know, I think in this world of where everything's trying to grab our attention, all I crave is to just focus on one thing.
Right.
Unfortunately, we don't in our positions have the you know, ability to do that very often, or the privilege to do that. But when I do, when somebody literally says, you've got the green light. This is all you're doing now.
Yeah.
It's like such a joy. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, everything has to wait. I am now focused on this one.
Yeah,
and
which I think that's kind of an important detail in terms of the scaling up. That's the biggest thing, at least in my experience or opinion, is that like once you start actually getting paid to actually work on a project, that's the biggest thing for me, because it's like, oh, I can actually free up my schedule to now focus and do everything I actually want to do on this film instead of trying to like split my focus because I'm also having to do this job and this other thing. And it's like when you have that extra budget to actually get paid yourself and then now work on the thing you want to be doing. That's, I think, such a key thing.
Like it's like so much of it is just hustle. So much of it is just your own perseverance up until that. And even, even though people listening to this might think, oh, she's got all these things going on. Yeah, nothing gets paid in development, especially if you're just directing. If you're writing, obviously you do. But your specs, you don't get paid for those either until the thing goes or is set up. So it's a constant pushing things up a hill. And there is something to be said when you finally get that ability to breathe, where you're like, okay, I know there's a paycheck coming for sure. And then it's not that, and I don't want to live in like a commerce-based world, but we do. Like that is the world that we live in.
Unfortunately.
And like we have to feed ourselves. And we're like, and like we were just discussing, I don't have a trust fund. So it's like, I got to make these things work. So it is such a joy when you get to like paid to do what you love. Yeah. And you were told this is it now. This is focus on this and make it the best you can possibly make it. It's such a joy.
Really, truly. And there was one thing that I didn't touch on that I wanted to, is that you started as an editor. And so how does that affect your filmmaking? Because I also was like editing all my own stuff until my first feature. And then I was like, I need outside opinion. I mean, I'm also acting in it. So there's like another role I'm doing.
Yes.
So I need that.
You're too close to it.
Yes. Yeah. And so is that something you kind of learned over your projects?
So what happened is, no. So I was at film school, but like undergrad film school in Australia. We can kind of do it both.
Okay.
Undergrad or postgrad. So I was doing my film undergrad degree in Australia, and mine was a technological uni, so it was very hands-on, and I love that because I feel like I came out with an apprenticeship in every little role in the, I wasn't a master of all of them, of any of them, but so we did learn Avid, we did learn VFX, we opened up Pro Tools, and we 16 millimeter, and we learned how to clap a load. We learned how to, even though no one does this anymore, we learned how to wind a Steenbeck. And even we were not doing that back then either. But they wanted us to see what it was like, what editors used to do back in the day, and how they used to splice, what a splice actually was, and what bins actually were, and things like that. And so it was at film school that I fell in love with editing.
Cool.
And I didn't actually quite realize exactly what it was, but I now, looking back, when I was young, I used to link up to VCRs and create montages of the Academy Awards. So I didn't realize I was editing, but that's what I was doing. And so I was like, and then of course, some of my favorite filmmakers, like the Coen brothers, Robert Rodriguez, were editors as well. So I was like, maybe this is the way in. And, it was a very strategic decision because I saw like the editors get to sit with the directors and get to sit with the producers. So you're very close to them.
Smart, yeah.
But also you get to formulate the story. And, whether it's a small commercial, which I did a lot of commercials or music videos or documentary, especially documentary, you are literally the storyteller. Yeah. Like sometimes the director will just hand you a bunch of footage and without even a written plot. And you're like, okay, I will make up the plot. It's kind of wild. So it just really helped me as a storyteller, to really edit the film as I am shooting it. And with The Light of the Moon, it was because I wrote, directed, produced, and edited it.
And then you also played the waitress.
Yeah. Very small. I do a little cameo in all my films. Yeah. But because I was editing, I will say that was really hard to edit because I was I had no objectivity to it anymore. I was way too close to it. So I really relied on my producers and audience feedback, from trusted friends. Yeah. Because I really couldn't. It's like editing, what's beautiful about that art and why I love working with an editor now and not doing it myself, even though I really respect like Sean Baker and all these people that still do it themselves. I just don't know how they do it. Yeah. So I used to have to get a little bit high, to be honest, to be able to edit or drink a beer or something like that, because I was like, I feel it's too much. Yeah. I know what happened on that day and all the things that we had to overcome, and so it's just hard. Yeah. So I would rely on the feedback to really get it to there. And now I really love and honor that relationship that I have with my editors now, because I just really respect that, their honesty as a storyteller. And quite often I let them have free reign for the first few weeks of the edit. And, 95% of the time I'm going to probably go back to the way I want to do it. And I tell them, like, go wild. Like, don't do what you think I want you to do. Do what your gut is telling you to do. And 5-10% of the time they show me something that I really did not see, where I was like, wow, where did you come up with that? Like, and so, I just really trust their genius and trust that they're seeing something completely objectively and they're not coming in with the knowledge of what happened that day and how hot it was and we were all like sweltering or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I really value that. And, but it does help me. It's an incredible skill while I'm shooting.
Yeah.
I know exactly the amount of coverage I've got. I always say I definitely don't undercover and I never overcover. I don't think very much. Saving you time and allowing you to move on with your day and not exhausting your actors, getting a gazillion takes, keeping them fresh. Because I know when I've got the take. Yeah. I know that, and sometimes, you might need to do another one because the camera needs to get it or whatever it is. So I just really think editing is like an incredibly valuable tool to have in your arsenal as a director. Also acting classes. So that's it. Go take an editing class and go take an acting class.
I completely agree. Yeah, because you know what you need.
You're already cutting it together. Yeah. You're just like, okay, that and then that. Nope, we haven't gotten that, so we have to go there. And I'm very meticulous with my shot listing, so it's all pre-planned. But sometimes on the day, you do need to throw in a shot or something like that. Because you're like, oh, yeah, I didn't think of this, that we need or this.
Yeah, or the transitions too is huge.
Yeah. Yes, I try to, transitions are always difficult, especially when in this one coming up, it's two worlds and two kind of stories that are happening. So me and Autumn, my cinematographer, we're starting to think about, okay, what are these transitions between how are these, until the audience realizes these worlds are woven in the story, we should obviously imply it. And how do we get back and forth between this one? And I don't want to just like wipe to a wall or whatever, I'm going to try to think of like some creative ways.
Oh my God, yeah, there was this, I'm not going to say it, but there was this show that my fiance and I were watching, and it just like every time it went to the new thing, it said today. And I'm like, we know, like you can tell us once or twice or like distinguish it and, get creative with it. But like, it just kind of became a running joke at that point because it was like every time we cut back, it said today. And we're like, we know. Yeah. There's different people in this world. Yeah. There's different tone to this world. Like, you already established that. Yeah.
I was watching the first episode of Slip, which is on Zoe Lister-Jones's new series. And I only watched one episode, but that does some very creative transitions.
Okay, I'll have to look for that reason.
There's a lot of little micro cuts in there that she's doing, a lot of kind of Flutter type style cuts, which are beautiful but are expensive because they take time because you need to change costumes, change light, change all of that. Or when you're shooting multiple scenes, just know that you're going to get that for another transition. So I thought that was like, there's just, it's really incredible. Those texture you always get, to me, when you're shooting a scene, you get the master, you kind of get the shot that, to tell that scene, to tell that story. And then once you feel like you've got all the angles you need to like tell the story, then when whatever you've got left over, you're like, okay, now let's do the artsy stuff. Yeah. And that's always fun, because you're like, now let's get to be creative and get to put that texture in the film that, you may not get. Yeah, sometimes.
Before I get to my last question, I actually want to dive in on one more thing because I don't know if it's like recently or not, but like you're also an intimacy coordinator. Yes.
Oh, so I've done the intimacy coordinator training.
Okay.
And I did that just to be able to offer that as a director.
Gotcha. So yeah, well, that's what I'm interested in hearing about. Is like, how do you feel like that now informs your work?
You know what's crazy is, I won't speak for every female director, but it kind of is just innately what we already do. Okay. So I did the training, a weekend training. I didn't do the full course. I did a weekend training. And I was like, this is what I do as a director. I would never disrespect an actor like that. And I always discuss ahead of time, and not in front of anybody else, boundaries and what they want this scene to feel like and tell and what their limits are and all this, of course. So all of it is actually just, I will say, instinctful for me. But it's not, I think it comforts actors to know that I have that training. Yeah. So I always offer if they would like another perspective. And I always say I never would, just so you know, my whole MO is to make sure you're not going to, if you are not comfortable in the scene, then it's not going to look good or feel good or tell the story that we're trying to tell. Yeah. So I would never, ever push a boundary or a limitation. But if you would like me to get a third party, another intimacy coordinator, absolutely happy to.
Yes.
So far in my career, no actor has asked for it, but I value that role. And it's just something that I think is important. I would say that, I don't want to stereotype, but maybe a lot of male directors maybe need to go take the course and just kind of, think about it in that way. Or just have an intimacy coordinator on set. And I do really value the role. But yeah, I helped out a friend recently.
Yeah, well, that's how I heard about it. Yeah, because they were on the show.
Yeah, I helped them out and did some intimacy coordination because Sonia's my best friend. And, but typically it's not something that I do other than when I'm directing. Yeah.
Right. Well, I was just interested that when I heard that you had done that on their film, I was like, oh, that's cool that like you're a director and I'm just like having that training. And I was just curious about how that informs your work, especially because you have done, sensitive films, sensitive topics.
I've never done a film without a sex scene or a TV show. And it was kind of lovely on the end. The 4 episodes that I didn't shoot, we were shooting up in Queensland. I was editing down in Sydney. And the actors requested that I fly up to shoot the sex scenes. So that was kind of like funny. I just came in for the day, shot some sex scenes, and then walked back and then got on the plane and went back to Sydney to the edit room, which was lovely. I love that actors feel comfortable with me and want to, because it's a vulnerable position that actors are in. And there's just so many small ways that we can make them feel like more respected and more comfortable so that they can bare their souls and things like that. And typically the scenes that I shoot, the intimate scenes that I shoot, are usually revealing something psychological about the character. They're rarely just sex for sex sake. Yeah. Which is fine. If you wanted to have that in your film, fine. But like typically it's usually revealing a story plot. There's a point to this. Yeah. Though sex can just be for fun and because you want to have it in the film, that's fine. But so it's a vulnerable position emotionally as well, not just physically. Right. So it's just, you got to treat people with care and kindness. And then I think you just get better work anyway. So it's like, I would never dream of doing it any other way. Yeah. But it was nice to have the formality of the training to be able to put words to things that I've always done, terms to things.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So then my last question I ask everyone is what advice would you give to someone making their next film?
Making the next film or making their first film?
We can do both.
Okay, because that's different.
Yeah. I actually am interested to hear what the difference...
To make your first film, call all your favors once. This is your time. Cool. Do them all, bank them all up and use them for your first film.
That's good, yeah.
Absolutely. You can call them. You can call on favors once, but I don't think you can call on them twice. Yeah. So use them all for the one because it's your big giant.
Yeah, go big.
Yeah, you might as well. What else have you got to lose? Yeah. But making your next film in general, whatever the scale is, I think it really is like just be true to yourself. I started to, during kind of the strikes and we've had a tough few years in the industry. Sometimes I would start to panic a little bit or start to, should I take that? Well, I'm being offered this thing and I hate it. I think this script is terrible. And I realized that's not what I got into this industry to do. And as much as it's hard and sometimes you don't know when the next paycheck is coming or things like that. But I never really got into the industry to make a bunch of money. I got in the industry to tell stories and to tell human stories. And so I say that I Marie Kondo a film sometimes where I hold the script to my stomach and I'm like, do I want to do this? And so I'd say the truth is be true to yourself. Only lean in if you really want to lean in, because it takes so much effort. It takes so much energy, and you don't want to make something that you don't love to the core. Yeah. So just stay true to yourself.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure. It flew by.
Yeah, it did. Thanks for having me. That was great.
Of course.